Now let's explore ecological saints. What I mean by this is women and men who had a deep relationship to God and were canonized by the church as being examples to follow. But the ones I'm presenting all have a special relationship with creation. Let me start with Saint Kevin of Glendalough. He's a saint from Ireland. He was a hermit that prayed exclusively in nature, at the foot of a tree or on a rock. When he prayed in a lake, an otter would bring him fish to keep his strength up. According to legend, he held a bird's nest in his hands until the eggs hatched. It's actually a pretty cool story. It happens at the beginning of Lent, and he was praying with his hands open like this. Eyes closed, but hands open. And I think it's a robin who came and built its nest. And the bird laid the eggs. And he stayed like this for the whole time of Lent. And so that's the story of him just taking care of these, and the mother bird would come from time to time, but he was protecting these eggs all along. And the story goes that finally the eggs hatched, and the mother came back and kind of gave him the signal that she would take care of the eggs from here on. And so he put the nest in a secure place, and the mother thanked him. And then it was Good Friday, so he was able to go to the Good Friday service. So that was his whole experience for Lent. Now, obviously, this is a very special story. And it's easy to say we believe it or not. It's part of his legend. But it does say something about him. It does say something about the spiritual experience. It does say something about loving creation so much that we're attentive to these things, and that we're even nurturing the reproduction of the population of another species when it's necessary. There are lots of other stories about him relating to other animals. One of the funny ones is the cows. When the cows were stressed and would not give milk anymore, the farmer would come with the cow, leave the cow with Kevin for a few days, and then when the cow would come back, gave lots and lots of milk, and the cow was a happy cow. So, we always focus on St. Francis of Assisi, but Kevin of Glendalough is clearly a very cool saint in relationship with nature, with God's creation. Let me talk to you about St. Hildegard of Bingen. She's a German saint. This Benedictine cloistered nun combined scientific observation and mystical contemplation of nature. We see that in lots of her writings. She studied the properties of plants in order to fabricate medicines. That's what you see on the icon here. She was also the writer and composer, and is recognized as a doctor of the church. Really an amazing woman where we just can't stop learning about her. She wrote music, she invented a language, and she wrote things about creation. She has these designs, and then you see like the physical world, but then it goes into something more mystical and spiritual. So we have a lot to learn from her. But just trying to adopt her outlook on creation is much bigger than just love your neighbor. It's loving the whole world all around. There's a movie that was done about her called Vision, the life of Hildegard of von Bingen. You can look it up, watch that movie. I recommend. Then, I cannot not talk about St. Francis of Assisi. He wrote the Canticle of the Creatures, which basically sums up his spirituality. Be praised, my Lord, through Brother Sun, Sister Moon, and the stars, Brother Wind, Sister Water, Sister or Mother Earth. He also preached to the birds and tamed an enraged wolf that was terrorizing the village of Gubbio. So the story of the village of Gubbio, here's how it goes. Francis was walking like he would walk huge distances, and he stopped by the village of Gubbio, and people were terrorized. People were scared because it had been a few days that there was a wolf that ate some chickens and attacked people, and they got really afraid. And so Francis took it upon himself to bring peace back to this village. So he walked around, and then finally he met the wolf in the street. And everyone was scared for him. And the first thing Francis did, he was firm. He said, "From now on, you're not going to hurt anyone else." And then his voice changed, and he became much more peaceful. And he looked at the wolf. And the wolf had damaged fur. It showed that the wolf was not healthy. And finally, Francis understood that he had been kicked out of his pack. He was excluded. And he was just trying to survive. So Francis looked around and told the people, "Well, are you ready to take care of him? He needs to be adopted. Brother Wolf needs help. Will you help him?" And people agreed. Francis looked at the wolf and said, "Would you accept this? Do you want to be part of this village, this part of this family? We'll take care of you." And there's this nice picture of the wolf giving his paw, and they shaked paws like that. There's also the story of Francis of Assisi walking on a path, and then he sees under a tree many different types of species of birds. And he was intrigued by that, so he changed direction and went to see them. And he told them, "Brother birds, you're so lucky to be able to open your wings and fly and feel the air under your wings and see the world so differently. Brother birds, you're so lucky because you don't sow and you don't reap, but yet God gives you everything you need. So make sure you thank God and give Him praise, and that your song may be praise to the Lord." And then Francis made the sign of the cross, and the birds flew off in all directions, singing praises to the Lord. I could continue going on and on and on. There's a book called the Fioretti that has lots of stories of, all the relationship to animals and plants. And he's just so inspired. He inspired Claire as well, Saint Claire, who had a garden in her monastery because she still wanted a connection with creation. And Francis is the patron saint of ecology. I'll finish with another saint, Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. She's a Mohawk. She grew up in modern-day New York State. And she met some missionaries, black robes, who came in her village and talked about Jesus and were trying to share the good news with them. Kateri was sick, and she just loved all the stories from the missionaries, and so she decided to follow them. She followed them north to Kahnawake in the south of Montreal. And there she stayed. It was in the forest among the trees and the stillness that the Great Spirit spoke to her heart. All of nature spoke to her of the Creator, and she knew peace. Being in harmony with all creation was a native value she had learned from a young age. And that was just so easily integrated into her faith, her Christian faith. So she would follow the missionaries in this little wooden chapel, and she would start prayers there. But for her, it was inconceivable to talk to God being stuck between four walls. So she would start the prayers there, but then go out and at the foot of a tree would continue her prayer and finish her prayer there in the openness of creation, because that spoke more to her heart. All of these saints, I collected more than 100. I put on a timeline, and we can see it kind of stops 300 years before now for a bunch of reasons. I believe there have been men and women of faith who have been close to nature for these whole 2,000 years. It's just that at some periods, the church did not consider that that was part of the values that we should hold dear, and did not recognize that part in some of the saints. So I hope we're in a renaissance of saints close to nature. The fact that you're following this training, you probably are an ecological saint as well. So the question now is, after these stories, and I hope you find other ones, how can the stories of the saints' relation to nature inspire your own life?